Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the side table that we're making. Let's get some real quick highlights of what we already have done, putting together the top and cutting the wood to build the sides. And that's what we have so far. And so here we go with building the shelf. Right now I'm taking the measurements from earlier what I made. The measurements I took from the legs and cutting the 1x12 to the correct length. The top shelf, so now we're going to do the same thing to the bottom shelf. We're going to cut it the same length. I'm just smoothing down any rough edges from the saw. Okay, so now what I'm doing here is we're going to attach the 1x12 to a 2x2 to put the trim piece on the shelf, on both of the shelves. And so I'm just showing the different settings on the Kreg jig to actually make the pocket holes in the 1x12. So we're setting the Kreg jig to the appropriate depth so the pocket holes are correct. And the thing you want to make sure on this is that you're putting the pocket holes in the underneath side of the shelf. So choose which side of the shelf you want to be the top. And we're just putting several on each side so that it's attached really well. Okay, now we're going to sand the top, make sure it's nice and smooth. This doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to actually end up painting the bottom half of the side table. And then here we're putting pocket holes on the ends of the shelf as well, because it will have a 2x2 connected to it as well. Okay, now that we've got all of the pocket holes drilled and we've got both of the legs completed, now it's time to assemble the base of the table. So we're just going to glue this and screw this together. And I had a little help on this one. It's nice to have a second pair of hands to help hold things in place while I'm screwing in the pocket screws. And right here we're just making sure everything is flush, because you want the shelf to be nice and flush with that 2x2 that it's getting attached to. And so once we've got the other shelf put in, we take the other leg and we're going to glue and screw it into place as well. Okay, now we have the side table frame almost complete, and we're going to be putting the 2x4s at the very top to connect the 2x6 top to. And so we're measuring those and cutting those right now, and those will also be attached with pocket holes, or pocket screws, I mean. And this is just going to allow us to attach the top again so that we can put some screws underneath to attach it to the top. And again, the top of your Kreg jig case will show you what lengths things need to be set for the thickness of the board you're cutting into, and the material you're using, and the screw length as well. And now I'm just setting those settings. So now with the pocket holes put into the 2x4s, we're going to attach those and glue and screw those in. And so what I'm doing here is I'm starting the screws into the 2x4. It just helps a little bit with getting that first one going without trying to hold the 2x4 in place and put the screw in the pocket hole. Okay, now what I'm doing here is putting the 2x2 on the shelf, on the middle shelf or the top shelf, so that it has that nice trim look that we're going for. And here I'm going ahead and drilling the holes through the frame that I'll use later to attach, put screws through to attach to the top, the 3 2x6s that we've glued together. Okay, so the last thing on the frame of the side table is to make the crossing 2x2s. And what I did here was I really kind of just did these by hand and cut them down to length, and then I held them up on the side of the frame the way that I wanted them, and used a pencil to draw out where those angles needed to be cut for the first one. And you can do this a number of different ways. I actually wanted there to be 2 angles so that it looked like the board was an X all the way through, as opposed to mitering the edges to where it's set flush up against one of the sides. It made for a little bit more difficult angle cuts, but I think the overall look was what I was going for. And so once those were cut, those were glued, and I just nailed them in with a brad nailer. The glue is going to do most of the holding here. I put the brad nails in just to secure it that little bit extra. Okay, now here's the second piece of the X. Again, this one is the more difficult of the two. And again, I just like the first one, I went ahead and cut a piece mostly to size, and then I transferred the angles onto it. And then once I got the angles cut just right, I went ahead and cut those by hand with my hand saw. That was actually easier than trying to measure out the most accurate angle with my miter saw. It just allowed it to be faster to build out. Again, you could have done this a number of different ways. This is the way I chose to do it, just for to make it go faster. And again, it's just glued and nailed in place. Okay, so and now that is the finished side table. As we said in the first part of the video, or part one of the video, the top I actually stained with an oak stain, and the bottom is painted with a light blue paint. And right now we're just attaching the top to the frame, and that is it. Thanks a lot for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe.